there something in the system that needs to be turned on?
This has got power.
I'm not going to touch this.
But no voice.
I've learned this the hard way.
Do you hear me in the sanctuary?
No.
But it's definitely, the mic itself is turned on. Does that microphone work?
Yeah, this is working, right?
Okay, so
Part of the
something
system's on.
Deb, you guys, you can hear me okay from back there, right? No?
I guess you could just do it from here.
That might be me and not the mic.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, good.
How about right?
Yeah,
Is that one working?
Yes.
Deb, can you hear?
Deb, can you hear me right now? Not at all.
I know it's working.
No, it's on.
It's on. It's on. Oh, it's not very hot. Okay, that's the, yeah.
All right, we'll make it work.
We can hear you on YouTube on that microphone.
Only this one and this one, but not those.
So when, sorry, obviously I'm still a little paranoid. When I sermonize, I have to do it from that distance. I'm going to be wiping things in between.
Oh, is there power on there?
I know I can hear her.
Oh, Rabbi Brother.
We're the AD guys.
I'll wait till the excitement behind me is over. All right, we'll get started in 1 or 2 more minutes. We're just waiting to iron out the technical.
Hello.
There we go. Yay. Okay. All right, so we are going to get started on page 68. We have a very small group today, so please, if you're here in person, sing along. How's that? All right, page 68, Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu, Ohaleha Yaakov, Mishkanoteha Yisrael. Ma Tovu, Ohaleha Yaakov, Mishkanoteha Yisrael. We are going to skip ahead to page 73. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'zach b'yamino v'havim l'meinu. I'm going to start over. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'zach b'yamino v'layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzelmo.
We rise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani bat chorim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokei achivrim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish harumim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rakaha aretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asali kol tzarki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamechim mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanotin li'av koach. You may be seated. Skipping ahead all the way to Psalm 150, page 134. Hallelujah, 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 el bekocho, hallelujah, birki auzo, hallelujah, bigvarotav. Hallelujah, karav good love. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 b'tziltzalei shama, hallelujah, b'tziltzalei trua, kol hanshamata hallelujah, kol hanshamata hallelujah. All right, skipping ahead to page 143. And I guess I should also announce, Rabbi Bloom is not here today, clearly. He's not ill, he's just on vacation. So just want to make sure no one is worried about him. And Karen is here, so the Bloom family is in the house. Page 143. Nishmat kol chai tevarech et shimcha. Mi yidmelach umi yishvelach umi ya'aruch lach ha'el ha'gadol ha'gibor v'hanara el yom kanei shamayim va'aretz nachalel chal shadecha umvarech et shem ha'kodsho ka'amor leDavid barchi nafshi ad Adonai v'chol karvai et shem kodsho ha'el beta'atzu meruduzecha ha'gadol b'chvod shemecha ha'gibor lenetzach ha'noratecha V'hamelech ha'yoshev al kisei Ramanisa. Page 149, Shacharit. Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo v'chatu rananu tzadikim ba'adonai l'sharim v'vatahila v'fi yesharim titala l'divrei tzadikim titbarach V'vilshon chasidim titromam, uv'kerev kadoshim titkadash, uv'makalot revavot amcha beit Yisrael. Brina yiparshim chamalkinu b'chol dor v'ador, shekin chovei kol haitzurim lefanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotinu, lehodot lehalel l'shabeach, lefe'er l'romim lehader, levarech le'aleu koles, al kol divrei shiro b'tishbachot, David ben Yishai avdecha meshichecha, yishtabach shimcha la'ad malkeinu. Brachot v'hodaot me'ata v'ad olam, Baruch atah Adonai, El melech gadol v'tishbachot, El ha'hodaot Adon ha'niflot, ha'bocher b'shirei zimra, Melech elchecha olamin.
Chetzi Kaddish, page 151.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrachir te v'yom nichmachute, v'chayechanu v'yomechan, v'chayedahu beit Yisrael, v'agala v'bizman kariv, v'meru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach, le'olam v'el me'almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitrumam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh, v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu, la'elam mikol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen.
Those who are able, rise for Baruch Hu 152.
Baruch Hu atah Adonai ha'mevorach.
Maybe seated.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or u'berei choshech osei shalom u'berei et hakol hakol yoducha v'hakol yashabechucha.
Bottom of page 154.
Ein ke'erkecha ve'ein zulatecha efes hiltecha u'midom elach. Ein ke'erkecha ve'ein zulatecha efes hiltecha u'midom elach. Ein ke'erkecha Adonai Eloheinu ba'olam hazeh Ve'et zulatecha malkeinu l'chayei ha'olam haba. Efes filtecha golenu limot ha'moshiach. Ve'et domeh lecha moshienu l'tiyat ha'metim. El Adon al kol ha'ma'asim baruch u'mvorach befi kol neshama godlo v'turo malei olam da'at udvuna sovev imoto hamitgaeh al chayot hakodesh v'nedar v'chavod al hamerkava Mishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei chevodo tovim me'orot shebara Eloheinu yitzaram v'da'at b'vina uv'haskel koach u'gvura natan bahem v'yot moshlim b'kerev tevel Meleim zivun fikim noram na'ezivam bechol ha'olam Zamechim b'tzeitam b'sasim b'voam Osi be'em aritzon konam Pa'er b'chavod notim lishmot zeholah erina Lezecher malchuto kara l'shemesh vayizrach ora'a v'hitkin surat halana shevach notim lo kol tzivah maram tiferet ugedula Serafim be'ofanim v'chayot ha'kodesh La'el asher shabbat mikol ha'ma'asim Titbarach surenu malkinu v'go'aleinu barei kedoshim Ishtabach shimcha le'ad malkeinu yotzer mishatim V'chulam potachim et pihem v'kedusha uv'tohora b'shira v'zimra V'varchim v'shabachim v'farim v'maritim v'markushim v'malachim Et shem ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol ha'gibor v'ha'nora Kadoshu V'chulam mekablim alehem ha'malchut shemayim ze mizeh V'notanim reshut ze lezeh L'hakdish liyotzram v'nachat ruach V'sofa v'rura v'nima kedusha Kulam kecharonim v'yomrim v'yora Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzevaot Melech ha'aretz kevodo V'ha'ofanim v'chayot ha'kodesh barash gadol Minasim liumat serafim Liumet ha'meshalchim v'yomrim Baruch kevod Adonai Nikomo Va'el baruch nimod hitinu
Top of page 162.
Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir V'nizkechu lanu mehera le'oro Mehera le'oro Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer ha'orot Ahava rabba ahavtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem la'gedola v'tera Amalta aleinu Avinu malkeinu Ba'avur avoteinu Shabbatu becha Shabbatu becha Avinu malkeinu Vatelam dechu kechayim Kim techonenu utamdenu Avinu ha'af ha'rachaman Amrachem rachem לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והאר בינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחל לבבנו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נגוש לעולם ועד, ולא נגוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בשורתך, והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי יבוא ישועתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקירבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת, אמת ויציב ונכון וקיים. לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים, בכיסו נכון ומלכותו וימנתו ליד קיימת, ודבריו חיים וקיימים. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו, מלכינו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פקודנו מצילנו, מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו, אתה הוא מעולם. Amen. Atahu Rishon v'atahu Aharon. V'aledecha Elonu melech goel Moshe. Tehilot l'Elyon Baruch Hu Barach Moshe B'nai Yisrael Lecha Anu Shira B'Simcha Rabbah Ve'amru Kulam Mi Hamocha Ba'elim Adonai Mi Kamocha Nedar B'Kodesh Nora Tehilot Sefelet Nora Tehilot Sefelet Shira Hadasha Shibchu Geulim Leshimcha Altzat Hayam Yahad Kulam Hodu Vehimlichu Ve'amru Adonai Imlach Leolam Va'ed Sur Yisrael Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael Uvdechenu Mecha Yehuda Be'Yisrael Go Aleinu Adonai Tzivot Shemo Kadosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
Page 175, Silent Amidah. continue with the lead Amidah on page 175, page 175.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fia hi tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Kanei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot Umevi Goel L'nei B'neihem Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ava Melech Ozer Moshiach Magin Baruch Atah Adonai Megin Abraham Ufokei Tzara Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Metim Atarav Le'Hoshia Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed Mechayei Metim B'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishanei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot Umidom Melach Melech Menit Umechayei Umasniach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah lahachayot metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei hametim.
Page 179, you rise.
Mekadesh et shemcha ba'olam Keshem shemach yishimo tov b'shnei morom Hakatuv b'yad aviyacha Zekara ze'el ze'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzebaot Melech haaretz kevodo Az v'kol ra'ash gadol Adir v'chazak mashmi'im kol Minaseim le'olat serafim Le'omatam baruch yameru Baruch Elod Adonai Minkom echamaheinu Tovia v'tilo haleinu Ki mechakim anachnu lach Matai tiloch b'tzion V'karov yemei le'olam ba'et tishkon Titkadal v'titkadash B'toch Yerushalayim ercha Le'dor v'ador U'lenetzach netzachim V'neim tirana Malchutecha Hadavar Hamur V'shirei u'zecha Al yedei Moshiach tzidkecha Yimloch Adonai le'olam Elohai Yitzion Le'dor v'ador Hallelujah Le'dor nagid golecha U'netzach netzachim v'yushavtecha nakish V'shivchacha lo yemini lo yemush le'olam va'ed Ki el melech hadol v'kadosh atah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el ha'kadosh Yismach, Yismach, Yismach Moshe b'matna, b'matna, b'matna Chelko ki eved ne'eman, ne'eman Ai karata lo Kelil tiferet b'rosho natata Ve'amdei lefanecha al har Sinai U'shnei luchot avenim norim b'yado V'chatuv b'hem shem yirat Shabbat V'chein katuv b'toratecha. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et Hashabbat la'asod et Hashabbat l'dorotam barit olam. Ve'ni ve'in b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'ha'aretz. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat va'inafash.
Page 183.
V'lo natato Adonai Eloheinu legoyei ha'aratzot. V'lo hinchoto malkinu le'ovdei fisilim. V'gam b'mnuchato lo yishkenu aralim. Ki le'Yisrael amcha netato b'yahava le'zera Yaakov asher bam b'charta. Mekadeshe shavi Shabbat. Kulam yisve'u v'yitagu mituveha Shabbat. V'hashvi'i ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. Chemdat yaminoto karata zecher l'maseh v'reishit. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotinu retzeh v'mnuchatenu. Kachenu b'mitzvotecha v'tinhelkenu b'toratecha. Sabinu mituvecha v'samchenu b'shuatecha v'taher libeinu ve'ogdecha be'emet ve'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava u'beratzon Shabbat kodshecha ve'anuhu ba'Yisrael mechadesheh shamecha. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Retzei Adonai Eloheinu b'yomcha Yisrael uvi tefilatam v'hashem et ha'avodah l'dir betecha v'ishe Yisrael tefilatam yavad tikabel b'ratzon u'tihila ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha v'tehezenanenu b'shuva l'tzion rachamim. Baruch atah Adonai v'machazir shechinato l'tzion.
Page 187.
Ato kilo chalu rachamecha v'chamrechem kilo tomu chasdecha ve'elam kivinu lach. Ve'al kulam yibrach v'yeramam shem hamalkinu tomi le'elam ba'ed v'chol chachayim yodu chasela v'halilu Hashem ha'be'emet ta'al yoshvatinu ve'ezratinu sela. Baruch atah Adonai ha'tov shimcha olchanei lehudot. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu Barcheinu b'bracha hamshulashat b'Torah haktuva al yadei Moshe adecha ha'amura mipi Aaron u'banav ha'amura mipi Aaron u'banav ha'amura mipi Aaron u'banav Kohanim am kodshecha ka'amur. Yavarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panacha elecha v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Sim shalom v'elam tov v'bracha achim v'hesed v'rachamim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael amecha. Baruchenu hinu kulam ke'echad v'yarpenecha. Ki v'ropenecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torah chayim v'yavad chesed u'tzedakah v'bracha v'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom. V'tov beinecha levarachanacham Yisrael b'chol eit u'b'chol sha'ah b'shalmecha. Baruch atah Adonai ha'mavarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
We continue it now with Kadisha Lane 193.
יתגדל ויקרא שמי רבם, ועמד יברכרתי ויום נכחותי, בחייכוני ומכוני בחיינו כל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ימרו. יהי שמי רבם מבורך, לעולם ולעולמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה. לעילם יקום ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן וימיו ימרו. תתקבל צלתהן ובאותהן לכל ישראל, קודמה בבן וישמעיה וימרו. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, בחיים עלינו ויכל ישראל וימרו. עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ויכל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל וימרו.
So a huge Yasher Koach to Jacqueline Pelchick, who led us in Shachrit. We continue with Torah service on page. Are you doing Torah service also?
Unless someone else wants to do it.
I mean, we would love to have you continue during Torah service if your voice is able.
Sure.
That is fantastic. We continue on page 195 in Kamocha Torah service.
Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kama'asecha, malchutecha malchut, kol olamim, u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imlach, le'olam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av ha'rachamim heitiva v'rtzoncha et Zion. Tivnei cholot Yerushalayim, Tivnei cholot Yerushalayim. Ki becha levad batachnu, melech elram v'nisa, Adon olamim.
And we rise.
Vayhi b'nsoa ha'aron, vayomer Moshe, Lo Adonai, ve'afutzu oirecha, ve'amusu b'samecha, mipanecha. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, u'devar Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai Kadosh Shema.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai Kadosh Shema.
Gadu Adonai Yiti, Unerolema Shemo Yachdo.
Lecha Adonai HaGedula, VeHaGevura, VeHaTiferet, VeHaNetzach, VeHahod. Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Lecha Adonai HaMamlacha, VeHaMiknesei, VeChol Rosh. Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachavu, Lehadom Radlav Kadoshu. Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachavu, Lehar Kodsho. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
So this week's Torah portion is Pinchas. We'll be reading for the triennial from chapter 26, verse 52, up to first chapter 28, 15, and then Machzir in chapter 29. So you can find the first of our readings on page 924, page 924. If you have Eitz Chaim, if you have another book, Numbers 26:52, and this. So it's a really exciting portion. It's chock full. There's a lot going on. The first verses that we'll read is 26:52 to 56, and this is where we have the explanation of how the land shares will be divided.
V'yazar v'yagim v'yashvil l'chol ha'chosim ba v'nomar amen. Hakol ha'vugad Eloheinu kavod la'Torah kohen karav. Yamod David ben Chananya HaKohen Baruch Shenatan Torah L'Yam Yisrael B'Kedushato V'yatem Avikim B'Adonai Elohechem Chayim Kolchem Chayom.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor.
לאלה תחלק הארץ, ונחל המספר שמות, לרב תרבה נחלתו, למעט תמיד נחלתו, איש לפי פקודיו יותן נחלתו, אך בגורל יחלק את הארץ, משמות מתמוטות אבותם, ובכן ינחלו, על פי ינחלו, על פי הגורל תחלק נחלתו, בין רב למעט. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורה ובין חיי עולם נטל בתוכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Thank you, David Goodwin, for the Aliyah, and it's Steve Steiner who's doing the chanting this morning, who we also thank. We continue with chapter 26, verses 57 to 62, and this is where we start. God loves us so much. God's going to start counting us for the census. It's also very practical because we have to figure out how to divide up the land that was just mentioned.
Yamad Yisrael ben Moshe Halevi.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Amen. Va'ela pikudav halevi. Va'ela pikudav halevi.
Pikudei.
Va'ela pikudei halevi. Lemishpachotam. Legershon mishpachat hagershoni. Lichat mishpachat hakati. Limrari mishpachat hamari. Eile Mishpachat Halevi Mishpachot Eile Mishpachot Levi Mishpachat Halevi Mishpachat HaChebroni Mishpachat HaMachli Mishpachat HaMoshi Mishpachat HaKarchi Ukahat Holit et Amram V'shem Eshet Amram, Yocheved Bat Levi, Asher Yoda Otach, Levi B'Mitzrayim, V'teled Amram et Aharon V'et Moshe, V'et Miriam Achutam, V'yavaled L'Aharon, et Nadav et Avihu, et Elazar et Itamar, ve'amad Nadav et Avihu, ve'hakrivam esh zara lifnei Adonai, ve'hayu pikudeihem shlosha, ve'esrim elef, kol zachar miben chodesh v'mala, ki lo hitpakdu, b'toch b'nei Yisrael, Ki lo nitan lahem nachala b'toch b'nei Yisrael.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Yashar. We continue now with this third Aliyah, chapters 26:63 to 27:5. This both explains the exclusions from the sentence, the unenrollments, because of the punishment for previous crimes, but then it also has Zelophehad's daughter's first request, because Zelophehad died, doesn't have sons, and it's their first request to Moses about inheritance, changing the inheritance laws.
Ta'amad Menucha Bad Yosef Rachel Shlishi.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Elah,
Amen. Ela Pikudei Moshe Elazar HaKohen Asher Patu Et Bnei Yisrael Barvot Moab Al Yarden Yericho Uba'ele Lo Haya Ish Pikudei Moshe V'Aaron HaKohen Asher Patu Et Bnei Yisrael B'Midbar Sinai Ki amar Adonai lahem Ki amar Adonai lahem Mut yamutu b'midbar V'lo notar mehem ish Ki im Kalev ben Yefune V'Yoshua ben Nun V'tivravna ben Oslacha ben Chefer ben Gilad Ben Mechir ben Menashe, Mishpachot Menashe ben Yosef, Ve'ele Shemot ben Achat ben Atav, Benotav, Machalat Noah ve'Hagla u'Malka ve'Tirtza, V'Ta'omada Lifnei Moshe ve'Lifnei Elazar HaKohen, ולפני הנשיאים בכל העדה, פתח אוכל מועד לאמור. אבינו מקדים מדבר, והוא לא היה בתוך העדה הנועדים על אדוני בעדת קורח, כי בפתח מת ובנים לא היו לו. למה יגרע שם אבינו מתוך משפחתו? כי אין לו בן. תן לנו אחוזה בתוך אחי אבינו. ויקרב משה את משפטן לפני אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yasher Koach. We continue now with chapter 27, verses 6 to 14, which, if we have any lawyers here in the congregation or watching, this is absolutely remarkable, both law and example of leadership. We ended the last verse with Moses, who was supposed to be the one, if there was any complicated case, it was supposed to come before Moses to decide. We have Moses saying, oh, yeah, I need to bring this one to God. This is beyond me. And then we have God saying, oh, this is a good point. We need to amend or add, and there's a lot of questions about it. Is it amending? Is it adding? Is it changing the law? Because Zelophehad's daughters have a good legal argument. And the fact that it's the daughters is a whole other seminar that we could lead for several days. But we end with verse 14.
Ya'amad Nachman ben Raphael, Revi'i.
Barachias Adonai Amaboyra.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Amaboyra. Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hanim Amaboyra. Amasher B'Kavuni V'Koami V'Nusaloni V'Gusai Baruch Adonai Noisan Amaboyra.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomar Adonai al Moshe lemor kein benos lavcha dovro naton atiten lahem afuzat nachala betoch achei avihem ve'avarta et nachalat avihem lahem ואל בני ישראל תדבר לאמור, איש כי ימות ובן אין לו, ועברתם את נחלתו לביתו, ואם אין לו בת, ונתתם את נחלתו לאחיו, ואם אין לו אחים, ונתתם את נחלתו לאחי אביו, ואם אין אחים לאביו, ונתתם את נחלתו לשרו הקרוב אליו משפחתו ירש אותך, והייתה לבני ישראל לחוקת משפט, כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה. ויאמר אדוני אל משה עלה אל הר העברים הזה וראה את הארץ אשר נתתי לבני ישראל. וראית אותה ונצבת אל עמך גם אתה, כאשר נאסף אחרון אחיך, כאשר ראיתם בי ומתפרצים בגבעת העדה להקדישני במים להם ובגבעת קדש מתפרצים.
ברכת אדוני החיים והחואלה, מה שנוסונוי תורסיימת וחיה אדם טוב וחייני ברכת אדוני נויסן.
Amen.
We now continue chapter 27, verses 15 through 23, with another example of Moses' incredible leadership after God just reminds Moses that he's going to die before getting to the promised land. The very first thing that Moses asks God is for a new leader, that people need to see a peaceful transfer of power. And so God appoints Joshua, and this is where we get the first instance of smicha, of laying on the hand, so Moses can impart his wisdom to Joshua.
Yamot Shalom Melech ben Sid Baruch Chamishi.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. וידבר משה אל אדוני לאמור, יבגוד אדוני אלוהי הרוחות לכל בשר איש העדה, אשר יצא לפניהם, ואשר יבוא לפניהם, ואשר יוציאם, ואשר יביאם, ולא תהיה עדת אדוני כצאן אשר אין להם רועה. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, קח לך את יהושע בן נון איש אשר רוח בו, וסמכת את ידך עליו, ועמדת אותו לפני אלעזר הכהן ולפני כל העדה, וציווית אותו לעיניהם, ונתת מהורך עליו, למען ישמעו כל עדת בני ישראל. ולפני אלעזר הכהן יעמוד
ושלו כמשפט ההורים לפני אדוני. על פיו יצאו ועל פיו יבואו, וכל בני ישראל איתו וכל העדה. ויעש משה כאשר ציווה אדוני אותו, ויקח את יהושע ויעמידהו לפני אלעזר הכהן ולפני כל העדה. ויסמוך את ידיו עליו ויצווהו כאשר דיבר אדוני
ביד משה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורה אמת וחיי עולם נתן בחטאינו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yasher. We continue with chapter 28, verses 1 through 10, and here we start the instructions for the burnt offerings, regular burnt offerings, and the Shabbos burnt offerings, and this is where I'll be speaking about this particular part of the Torah in a little bit, and so for a teaser, pay particular attention to the language that's being used.
Yamos Zvi ben Hershlev Halevi. Hamishi. Can't count these days. Out of breath.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bo Karbanu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torto. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, צו את בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, את קורבני לחמי לישי, ריח נכחי תשמרו, להקריבי במועדו. ואמרת להם, זה האישה אשר תקריבו לאדוני, כבשים בני שנה תמימים, 2 ליום עולה תמיד. את הכבש אחד תעשת בבוקר, ואת הכבש השני תעשת בין 2. ועשיתית היפה סולת במנחה, פלולה בשמן, פלולה בשמן כתית רביעית ההיא. עולה תמיד, העשויה בהר סיני לריח ניחוח אישר אדוני. ונזכור רביעית ההיא לכבש האחד, בקודש כסף נזר שחר אדוני. ואת הכבש השני תעשת בין 2, כמנחת הבוקר וכנזכור תעשה אישה ריח ניחוח אדוני. וביום השבת 2 כבשים בני שנה תמימים, ו2 יסלונים סולת מנחה, פלולה ושמן ונזכור. עולת שבת בשבתו, על עולת התמיד ונזכר.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Notan Lanu Torah Emet Zechayei Olam Notan B'Sakeno. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
And now we have chapter 28, verses 11 through 15. We're going to get instructions regarding the burnt offerings for Rosh Chodesh. And we have a meta moment because as well we will be hearing the Rosh Chodesh prayer preparing for next week by our very Torah reader, right? You'll be right. Yeah, so we're quite meta right now.
Talmud Zina Rachel Bat Shlomo Ve'era Gittel Shvi'i.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
אמן, ובראשי חודשיכם תקריבו לאדוני, פרים בני בקר, שניים והעיר לאחד, כבשים בני שנה, 7 תמימים. ו13 עשרונים, סולת מנחה ברולב השמן לפר האחד, ושני עשרונים, סולת מנחה ברולב השמן, העיל האחד. ויסרון יסרון, סולת למנחה ברולב השמן לכבש האחד, ולריח ניחוח אישר אדוני. ונזכם חצי ההין יהיה לפר, ושלישית ההין לעיל, ורביעית ההין לכבש יין. זאת עולת חודש בחודשו לחודשי השנה. וזעיר עזים אחד לחטאת לאדוני, על עולת התמיד יעשה ונזכור.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah tamed v'chayei olam atah b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Asher Koah. And we continue now with Maftir, chapter 29. We do Chetzi Kaddish, and then we can do, that's what I was working backwards. So Marshall, thank you for leading Chetzi Kaddish.
Please rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Madivrach v'yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh
B'chayim hanu b'yomecha B'chayim b'chol beit Yisrael V'agala v'agala U'bizman karib
V'yimeru
Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach V'yolam u'lam ve'almaya Yitbarach
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yiraman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kodeshah Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata
Tushbechata v'nechemata Da'aminiran v'alma
V'yimeru
Amen.
And now we continue with Maftir on page 936, chapter 29, verses 35 to 30. And here we get the instructions regarding the Sukkot burnt offerings.
Ta'amad Yana bar Abraham v'Sara Hamavtir.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. Baruch Atah Adonai נותן התורה.
Amen.
ביום השמיני עצרת תהיה לכם, כל מלאכת עבודה לא תעשו. והקרבתם עולה איש ריח ניחוח אדוני, הר אחד העיל אחד, כבשים בני שנה 7 תמימים. מנחתם ונזכרם, לפר לעיל ולכבשים, במספרם כמשפט. וזעיר חטאת אחד, בלבד עולה התמין ומנחתה ונזכר. אלה תעשו לאדוני במועדיכם, לבד מנדריכם ונדבותיכם, לעולותיכם ולמנחותיכם ולנזקיכם ושלמיכם. ויאמר משה אל בני ישראל, ככל אשר ציווה אדוני את משה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם לקח בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Asher Koah.
Mishaberach for our Torah readers today. Mishaberach Apaten Abraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah. V'yivarecha kol ha'krim asher alu hayom likvod ha'makom likvod ha'torah v'likvod ha'shabbat HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yivarech Otam V'et Mishpachotam V'yishlach Bracha V'hatzlacha V'chol Ma'aseh Yedeim Im Kol Yisrael Achehem V'nomar Amen.
And a prayer for those who are currently in need of healing and wholeness. Misha Derech Avatin Avraham Yitzhak Yaakov Sarai Rivka Rachel V'Leah Vivarech Et Scott Lawrence Dahlia Bat Rezel Chazan Shlomo Natan Ben Nechama Barbara Rose Lou Barrel Ilya Oak Pastor Karen Stepko Karina Gola Bat Huda V'Yehuda Tzvi Leah Yehudit Bat Shena Shabtai Dov Ben Shimon Moshe Francis Block Shraga Endel Ben Brut, Emmanuel Ben Sarah, Esther Hamalka Bat Salha, Ray Ramshaw, Missy Rosen, Albert Alter, Rosie Gurman, Leah Bat Shimon Lazaz, Bob Rasters, Justin Hardy, Yachel Ben Eliza, Julia Maldonado, Eva Abrams Hamowitz, Roz Harris, and Martin Rosenthal. If there are any other names, please say them now. Sha'ata lechavod hamakom lechevor haTorah lechevor haShabbat HaKadosh Baruch Hu yivarech ota ve'et kol mishpachata v'yishlach baracha v'hatz. I'm on the wrong Mishaberach. I apologize. Misha Berach Avatina Raham Yitzhak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Vivarech Baropet Et HaCholim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Alaha Lachaz Bikam V'Rapotam Yishlach Lehem Mehira V'Fluah Shlema V'Kol Avarechem V'Gidehem V'Tok Shachale Yisrael V'Fuat HaNefesh V'Fuat HaGuf Shabbat Hi Mil Zok Refuah Karova Lavo Hashav Agalav Yizman Kariv Nomar. Amen. And we continue with Hagba and Galila.
Yamot Hamagir Tamot Hagolelet.
We rise.
Yesod HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Avi Adonai B'yad Moshe Eitz Chaim Li Lemachzikim Ba'avetom Ve'ameru Shar Eitz Chaim Li Lemachzikim Ba'avetom
Be seated. We have a slightly different Haftorah, not slightly, a very different Haftorah today than we would for Pinchas if Pinchas was before the 17th of Tammuz. So normally we would be in 1 Kings, but however, because we're after the 17th of Tammuz, we're in a mini period of consolation before Tisha B'Av, where we get the major period of consolation. So this week's Haftorah portion is actually Jeremiah 1 through Jeremiah 2, verse 3, and you get a cookie if you have the page in Eitz Chaim open. Say it again, David. 968, and the president gets a cookie.
That's all.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר פתאים טובים ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ומשה עבדו, ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. דברי ירמיהו בן הלקיהו מן הכהנים אשר ענתות בארץ בנימין, אשר היה דבר אדוני אליו בימי יאשיהו בן נמון מלך יהודה, 13 שנה למלכו. ויהי בימי יהויקים בן יאשיהו מלך יהודה, עד תום 12 שנה לצדקיהו בן יאשיהו מלך יהודה, עד גלות ירושלים בחודש החמישי. ויהי דבר אדוני אלי לאמור, בטרם אצורך בפטם ירדתיך, ובטרם תצא מלחם הקדשתיך, נביא לגויים נתתיך. ואומר אדוני אלוהים, הנה לא ידעתי דבר, כי נער אנוכי. ויאמר אדוני אלי, אל תאמר נער אנוכי, כי על כל אשר אשלחך תלך, ואת כל אשר ארצך תדבר. אל תירא מפניהם, כי איתך אני להצילך נאום אדוני. וישלח אדוני את ידו ויגל בי, ויאמר אדוני אלי, הנה נתתי דברי בפיך. ראה הפקדתיך היום הזה על הגויים והממלכות, לנטוש ולנטוץ ולהעביר ולהרוס, לבנות ולנטוע. ויהי דבר אדוני אלי לאמור, מה אתה רואה ירמיהו? ואומר מקל שקר אני רואה. ויאמר אדוני אלי, היטבת לראות, כי שוקד אני על דברי לעשותו. ויהי דבר אדוני אלי שנית לאמור, מה אתה רואה? ואומר סיר נפוח אני רואה, ופניו מפני צפונה. ויאמר אדוני אלי, מצפון תתפתח רעה על כל יושבי הארץ, כי הנני קורא לכל משפחות ממלכות צפונה נאום אדוני, ובאו ונתנו איש כסאו פתח שערי ירושלים, ועל כל חומותיה סביב, ועל כל ערי יהודה. ודיברתי משפטי אותם על כל דעתם, אשר עזבוני, ויקטרו לאלוהים אחרים, וישתחוו למעשה ידיהם. ואתה תזור מותניך, וקמת ודיברת עליהם, את כל אשר אנוכי אצווך, אל תחת מפניהם פן ארחיתך לפניהם. ואני נתתיך היום לעיר מבצר, ולעמוד ברזל, ולחומות נחושת על כל הארץ, למלכי יהודה לשריה, לכהניה ולעם הארץ. ונלחמו אליך ולא יוכלו לך, כי אני נאום אדוני להצילך. ויהי דבר אדוני אלי לאמור, הלוך וקראת באוזני ירושלים לאמור, כה אמר אדוני, זכרתי לך חסד נעורייך, אהבת כלולותייך. לכתך אחרי במדבר, בארץ לא זרועה. קודש ישראל אדוני ראשית תבואתו, כל אוכליו ישמו, רעה תבוא עליהם, נאום אדוני. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך, אחור לא ישוב ריקם. כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלוות נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני, משמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו, ואליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך. במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כסאו לא ישב זר, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו. כי בשם קודשך נשפט לו, שלא ייתן נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן דוד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודיעים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Yasher Koach. Don't go too far, because in 2 prayers you're back up. So why don't, it's 4th of July weekend. We've got celebrating of our democracy and our freedom to do. So why don't we say page 223? We'll say the prayer for our country together, and then we'll be led in the prayer for Israel. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask you to bless our country, its government, its leaders, its citizens, and its lands. We offer a prayer of gratitude for the precious gift of living in a land blessed with sublime physical beauty, individual freedom, economic abundance, and a rich, magnificent history. We offer a prayer of thanksgiving for those who came before us, those whose sacrifices created a strong, vibrant nation. We acknowledge that there are those in our country who are suffering as well. We offer a prayer of hope for those whose cups are empty, for those whose freedoms have been curtailed, and for those who have not been able to share fully in all of our country's blessings. We offer a prayer of support to the leaders of our government, understanding that leading a nation with such diversity and freedom is a difficult and daunting task. We offer a prayer of action to the citizens of our nation, that we may understand our obligation to be involved in making our country a better place for all who live here. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask you to bless our country, its government, its leaders, its citizens, and its lands, and let us say, Amen. And I'd like to invite Asher Berlin to the Bima Esk to lead us in a prayer for Israel. And we all join together.
Avinu Shebashamayim, Tzuri Yisrael V'Gala, Arech B'nai Yisrael, Reshit Mitzvah B'Ratenu, Hagen Alea Ve'arach Haskecha, V'fros Alea Sukash Lomecha, V'shlach V'cha Ve'amincha V'rashea, Sarea Ve'otzea, V'taknei Ve'etzah Tova Mifonecha, Chazek Et Yedei Mignei, Eretz Kodshei, V'hamkilem Avinu V'Yishua, V'ateret Nitzachon Ta'atrem, V'natat Shalom Ha'aretz, V'simchat Olam Le'Shea, V'nomar Amen.
Now we invite Ricky Gold back to the Bima for the blessing for Rosh Chodesh, Birkat HaChodesh. Page 227. Please rise.
יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, שחדש עלינו את החודש הבא, לטובה ולברכה, ותיתן לנו חיים ארוכים, חיים של שלום, חיים של טובה, חיים של ברכה, חיים של פרנסה, חיים של חילוץ עצמות, חיים שיש בהם יראת שמיים ויראת חטא, חיים שאין בהם בושה וכלימה, חיים של עושר וכבוד, חיים שתהא בנו אהבת תורה ויראת שמיים, חיים שימלאו משאלות ליבנו לטובה אמן סלע. מי שעשה ניסים לאבותינו וגאל אותם מעבדות לחירות, הוא יגאל אותנו בקרוב ויקבץ נידחינו מארבע כנפות הארץ. חברים כל ישראל ונאמר אמן. ראש חודש אב יהיה ביום שבת קודש הבא עלינו ועל כל ישראל לטובה. ראש חודש אב יהיה ביום שבת לטובה. יחדשהו הקדוש ברוך הוא עלינו ועל כל עמו בית ישראל לחיים ולשלום, לששון ולשמחה, לישועה ולנחמה, ונאמר אמן.
There does not seem to be any 7th or 8th graders, right, last time, but there might be at home, which means we hope that you will follow along at home. I'm not going to make my high school and college children come up and lead this. So I'll lead it, and as you all have heard me joke, I don't have a voice, so you all will come in very strong when you come in, but the reason why this prayer is meaningful to me, and I'm sorry to embarrass him, it is the reason, this is the very prayer that inspired us to name our son Asher. So it's a beautiful and meaningful prayer that we will all sing with gusto. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Od Yehalucha Selah. L'tehila l'David, Aromim Kalohai HaMelech, Baruch Shemcha Le'olam Va'ed. Gadol Adonai Mechulal Me'od, V'gdulato Ein Cheker. Hadar Kavod Hodecha, V'divrei Nefiliotecha Asicha. Zecher Rabtucha Yabiu, Tzidaka Yiranenu. Tov Adonai Lakol, Rachamav Al Kol Ma'asav. Kevod Malchutecha Yomeru, V'ratacha Yadaberu. Malchutecha Malchut Kol Amim, Memshaltecha B'chol Dor V'ador. Enechol Eilecha Yisaderu, V'tanutim Lahem Et Tefam Yito. Tzadik Adonai B'chol Drachav, V'chasid B'chol Ma'asav. V'zon Yirei Av Ya'aseh, V'et Shavatam Yishma V'yoshi'im. Gilad Adonai Yedaber Pi, V'yarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Le'olam Va'ed. And we now rise as we return the Torah to the Ark. And we invite Jacqueline back up to lead us in its return.
And our Ark openers.
And our Ark openers.
Yahalelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizgav Shemo levado. Olo haaretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'alo, tefillah lechol chasidav, lifnei Yisrael am kero. Darkei
may be seated at home as well. So for those who don't know me, I'm Rabbi Andy Berlin. Around here, I'm Andy. I'm a member of Temple Beth Abraham. And Rabbi Bloom has taking a much needed vacation after this year. And one of the things I love about this community is how many lay people we have who lead so many different parts of this service, just so professionally, competently, and beautifully. I'm going to start the drash this morning with a phenomenon that unfortunately many of us know, and it's something that I call the sneaky cruelty of mourning. When I was a rabbi at Temple Sinai for 13 years, and we spent a lot of time with people in immediate and long-term grief. And one of the things that they would describe are these surprise moments when grief would strike them unexpectedly. I think it's a cruel aspect of how we grieve. In a store, reaching for a favorite can of soup to bring home for a loved one, and then remembering that loved one isn't there anymore for the soup, and just the pain standing there in the grocery store, or driving and reaching the spot at which you would always argue about the fastest path home, and just remembering that moment and wishing that you could have that argument just one more time. Walking down the street and smelling a perfume that somebody wore, and just wishing you could fold yourself into that scent. What's amazing about this cruelty of mourning is that it's not in the big moments. We know and we can prepare that Passover, or Thanksgiving, or birthday, or Yortzeit, the anniversary of death, is going to be particularly hard. But it's the mundane, everyday pedestrian moments that we can't prepare for. Shabbos, it's not a time to reflect on the sadness and the mourning. I'm going to take that and think then about those who are in our life right now, who are present, who are loved, with whom we are in different types of relationships. I want to ask us if we can think of those pedestrian, mundane moments with the people who we are with now. When we ask that question, how can we hold on to them? I think the answer that we have is actually in our Torah portion, and in the half Torah portion that we would have read had we not been after the 17th of Tammuz. What's ironic about Pinchas is it is full of excitement. It has a lot of really big moments. In Pinchas is where we get the drama of Pinchas himself, the zealot, driving through two people naked. Not him, but them, with a spear. Like, how much more dramatic? Sorry, 7th and 8th graders, if you're not watching. How much more dramatic could we get than that? We have God loving our people so much that, again, God counts us. We have the division of the land, which really sets us up for very far into the future. Actually, up until the present day, but that's a whole other seminar that we could have later. We have Zelophehad's daughters. These women who successfully, legally challenged not just the law, but Moses and God, with God turning around and saying you're correct. We have the holiday sacrifices, all of the sacrifices for all of the major holidays, including the most holy of them, Shabbat. But this is not where we get our answer. There's one word, one very small word that is so easily ignored in all of the excitement in this Torah portion. It's a benign, banal word that actually sums up the entirety of the human condition. It's the Haftorah portion that we normally would have read that guides us to look at this tiny moment in our Torah portion. Jacqueline's cheating. She's trying to find the word. The regular Haftorah portion speaks of the import and the importance of smallness. And we know that Kings is actually chosen because it matches, we have in the Torah portion, we have God saying Joshua is going to take on the leadership from Moses, and then we have in 1 Kings, we get that Elisha is going to take on the leadership of prophecy from Elijah. That's why we have the match, but I think there's another more subtle and really important match. If you remember, and this is slightly before the Torah portion, it's one of my favorite lines in all of the Bible. It's when King Ahab is, Elijah, I don't like you. You are a troubler of Israel. And it's meant, I think it's meant to be slightly humorous. And Elijah, oh no, King Ahab wants to kill me and runs away, which is where we get to our Torah portion. He's hiding, our half-Torah portion is hiding in a cave. And he's waiting for God to speak to him. And so what happens while he's in this cave? There's a tremendous wind, just huge wind. Like beyond the kind of wind we get in the Bay Area where the limbs are falling off the trees and we're afraid because of the fire season. And God wasn't in this wind. And then after the wind, another thing we get, this Torah portion, I think the half-Torah portion was written in the Bay Area. Another thing we often get, there's an earthquake. The excitement and rumbling and shaking of the earthquake. God isn't in the earthquake. And then we get, unfortunately also common for us, a fire. This massive fire flying by the cave. God's not in the fire. And then, Kol Tmama Daka, a still, small voice. And this is when Elijah takes his mantle, covers his face, walks out of the cave and says, "Hi, God, what do you want me to do?" It's in the stillness and in the smallness. It's in the banal, in the pedestrian and in the mundane that we find God, that we find holiness. This is what we look for in Pinchas to teach us about the human condition. When I say Moedim, or Moedim L'Simcha, most of you will be thinking the holidays. The great, exciting, you get dressed up, you make your plans for meals, you either come to shul or if it's something, you cook for weeks, the bigness that you plan for. But what Rashi points out in chapter 28, verse 2, I think in Numbers, is Moed is actually used also for the daily sacrifices. What Rashi says is the reason why we use the word Moed is that every day is the appointed season for the continual offerings. Every single day. Rashi continues to explain that the reason for this, the reason it says Moed like that, it's the same thing our Haftorah portion teaches. It is not in the bigness and the grandness. Yes, they're holy, they're special, they mark memory. But Kadosh, true, deep, God-present holiness, that's in the average. That's in the routine. That's in the daily. It is in reaching for something at the supermarket. Because you're going to bring it home to someone who you love. And you show that by thinking in that moment, oh, I'll pick something up for that person as well. It's in delighting in having the same argument over and over and over for 21 years of marriage about the way home. That's holy. That's where God lives. It's in smelling their scent. And the meaning that that scent has of love and connection and deepness. In the tractate Menachot, which is one of the chapters of the Talmud 43b. Rabbi Meir taught us that we have to say, and this is where it comes from, 100 blessings a day. Why do we have to say 100 blessings a day? It's not that we're trying to elevate our actions into holiness. We don't need to do that. Our actions are already holy. At least 100 times a day, we're doing something so holy that we have to thank God that we're doing it. 100 blessings a day. The holy, the divine, the very breath and light and spark of God is all around us. In the air, in the space, we touch it, we breathe it, we see it. It moves in space and in time. Every day is moed. It is in the pedestrian interactions, in the natural occurrences. We know that Leviticus 19 is the holiness code, and this is where Musar, actually the practice of spiritual wakefulness, gets a lot of its commentary. And what does it repeat over and over and over in Leviticus 19? You will be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. It is not something that we reach for once in a while. It's not in the big moments or in the fireworks. It's not in coming together on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. It's there, but it's there because we as human beings are in a constant state of holiness. The best explanation that I've heard for keeping kosher, it's considered a chok, which means it's one of those laws that were given where we don't know the reason why. Right? If somebody says, why do you keep kosher? The answer is because God said so. But one of the best explanations, having said that, one of the best explanations that I've ever heard is that if you look through at all the things that are considered kosher, and I don't mean the rabbinic kashrut laws, I mean the ones in the Torah, they're all the things that an ancient person would see. Everything chews its cud and it has split hooves. It's unusual for something not to. If you look in the Mediterranean, everything in there, scales and fins. Something different from that is unusual. And what does that teach us about what is kosher? What is holy enough to eat and to be? It's just us. It's just being human. We are flawed. We are diverse. We're broken and happy and joyful. We do not have to be extraordinary to be holy. So my prayer for all of us is that we feel in our mundane, pedestrian, everyday moments, we feel that connection to the Creator, to what has given us that. If we have a blessing that we know to say for it, we mark it with that blessing. If we don't, let us just take a breath and be amazed by the holiness that is all around us. Can you hear that song? May this be God's prayer. Amen. Musaf? Jacqueline, thank you.
Page 239. Please rise. Yitkara v'yitkara shemi rabba Ve'alma divrach v'yamich machutei V'chayechon yomechon U'chayei dercho beit Yisrael V'gala U'bizman kari V'meru Amen Yehi shmei rabba Le'olam u'le'amaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach V'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalam Shemei d'kudesha b'richu Le'elam yinkol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran kafufi yagi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanorah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Chasdei Avot Umevi Goel Livnei B'neihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Moshiach Magim Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Metim Atara Le'Hoshia Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed Mechayei Metim B'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim B'Rofech Olim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Balo Geburot Umidom Melach Melech Menit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah lechachayot metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh hametim Na'aritzecha v'na'akdishecha Kesod tziyach sarfei kodesh Hamakdishim Shimcha b'kodesh Kakatuv al yad neviecha V'kara zeh el zeh v'yamar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzebaot, Melech ha'aretz kevodo, Kevodo malei olam, Mesher tav shualim ze lazeh, Aye mekom kevodo, Leumatam baruch yomeru, Baruch kevod Adonai Mikomo hu yifen berachamim, Vayachon am ha'yachadim shemo, Erev avoker bechol yom tamid, Ha'amayim b'yahava shema omrim, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, Vehu Yashmienu Barachamav, Shenit Li'enei Kol Chai, Shenit Li'enei Kol Chai, Li'od Lahem L'Elohim, Yadonai Elohim, U'divrei Kodechecha Katuv Lemor, Yimloch Adonai Le'olam, Elohai Zion, Le'dor Vador, Hallelujah, Le'dor Vador, Le'dor Vador, Le'dor Vador, Nahid God Lecha, Le'dor Vador, Le'dor Vador, Le'dor Vador, Nahid God Lecha, U'lanetzach netzachim, U'lanetzach netzachim, Kedushatecha nakdish, V'shimchacha Eloheinu, Mipinu lo yamush, Le'olam, Le'olam va'ed, Le'dor Vador, Le'dor Vador, Le'dor Vador, Nagid God Lecha, Le'dor Vador, Le'dor Vador, Le'dor Vador, Nagid God Lecha, Ki
page 258.
Say shalom b'romav, Uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru v'imru amin. Ya'ase shalom, ya'ase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We continue on page 259 with Kaddish Lane.
Yitgadal v'yikra shemei Rabbah, ve'almad v'rachirtiv yom nichmachutei, v'chayechoni v'mechonim chayidol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'bizman kri v'meru. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'al me'amaya yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishavach v'yitba'ar v'yitruvam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shemei nekudasha. Le'elam yikum b'chata v'shirata, tishbachata v'nechemata, ta'amiran v'yama v'yimaru. Tishkabal tzotahanu v'utahun dahu Yisrael, kodama v'hanu v'yishmaya v'yimaru. Yehi shalom Rabbah min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimaru. Oh, say shalom b'romav, Ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael, v'yakol yoshvei tevel v'yimaru. Amen.
So we have candy, but we don't have kids. So at home, please get your candy ready. And are you getting candy for us?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Maybe some of us will have candy. Page 261.
But only if you sing. You only get candy if you sing. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michamalkeinu, Michamoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu,
daughters, the adults decided if they were getting candy, they wanted chocolate. So they threw it at Jacqueline instead.
I was chocolate too.
Amazing governor. We continue with Alenu, page 263, 263. As those who are able, please rise.
Alinu l'shameach l'adon hakol la'tevedu la'leotzer breshit shelo asanu kegoye ha'aratzot velo samanu kelishbechot ha'adama shelo sam chalkenu kahem vegor alenu kechol amonam v'anachu korim u'mishaparim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim le'yotzer haaretz u'Moshe mikaro l'shamayim ima'av u'shchinatu zo v'gocher meromi u'Eloheinu Enon emet malkeinu echad zulato kakatu v'torato v'yadat hayom v'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elokim b'shamayim ima'am v'yal ha'aretz mitzvah Eino al kinecha v'elecha Adonai Eloheinu l'rod v'hera v'tiferet u'zecha l'ha'avir gilulim min ha'aretz ha'eli likarot yekaretun l'taken olam v'malachut shaddai v'chol b'nei basar yikreu b'shmecha l'hafnod elecha kol rishei ha'aretz yakiru v'yedu kol yoshvei tevel ki lecha tichra kol berech tishabach kol hasham lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu yichreu ve'yipolu v'lichvochim ha'yikar yitenu v'kalalu kulam edol malchutecha v'timocha lechem meher le'olam va'ed ki ha'malchut shelcha chi u'lo ne'ah timloch be'chavod kakatu v'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz v'yom ha'hu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
Those who are in mourning and observing Yortzeit, you can remain standing. The rest may be seated. And on this Shabbat, we remember the Yortzeit of Rebecca Barrow, Irving Brumberg, Steve Ellis, Ira Glasser, Elmer Glick, Samuel Gold, Anna Leah Greenstein, Eleanor Greenstein, Rose Jacobs, Joseph Kaplan, Edward F. Klinger, Ray Levitt, Sylvia Levinson, Josephine Lutz, Edith Moss, Sam Moss, Douglas Andrew Ross, Elaine Rubin, Howard Rubin, Henry Alton Schmulowitz, Michael Shaw, Israel Shepard, Lawrence W. Stone, Kenneth Tesler, and David Sifrin. And if I mispronounced your loved one's name, either for the Kaddish list or for the Misha Baruch list, I do apologize. I'm not the regular rabbi at the shul. And we continue with Kaddish Yatom. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'alma divrach v'rutei v'amlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. V'agala v'zman karib v'imru. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaled v'yitalal shmei d'kudushav v'rivu. Le'olam yimkol birchata v'shirata. Tishbechata v'nechamata. Da'amiran v'yalma v'yimru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah mim shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom mirmamav. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. And we do pray that the source of peace send peace to those who mourn and comfort to those among us who are bereaved. As together we say, Amen. Y'all may be seated. And Jacqueline Palchuk is multi-kippah today. So I'm going to invite her up for the announcements.
Shabbat Shalom. First of all, thank you to all the people who had to work to fill in Rabbi Bloom's shoes. Clearly, it takes a lot of us to do the job that he normally is able to do by himself. So a big thank you to Rabbi Berlin. I know she said she's Andy here, but she's always Rabbi Berlin to me. And thank you to Marshall, to Susan, to Joan, who also helped with the service, and to the Torah readers, Steve Steiner, O.T. Gould, Haftarah reader O.T. Gould, and also thank you for doing the Rosh Chodesh prayer. And thank you again, Rabbi Berlin, for doing the Drosh. So a few announcements. Tomorrow is Independence Day. So the office and Gone are closed on Monday, which is the 5th, but it's in observance of Independence Day. Minyan continues every Monday and Thursday morning at 8 a.m. here in the sanctuary. And I believe you do not have to sign up for that in advance. You just show up, so please do show up. Text study with Rabbi Bloom continues Wednesdays at 9 a.m. and virtual for now. Susan has adult Hebrew level 2, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Next week we'll have Kabbalat Shabbat at 6:15. And I believe Rabbi Bloom is back next week. Okay, Karen says yes. And Susan Simon continues her Taste of Text study every Saturday at 9 a.m. via Zoom. And then I have an announcement I'm excited about, which is WTVA is hosting its first in-person event this Wednesday, July 7th at 7 p.m. So 7 p.m. It's actually open to everyone. It's not just for women of TBA. And it's to support Elizabeth Gonzalez James, who her first book just got published in the last week. She's a TBA member. She's really worked a lot for this congregation. She ran the school's auction several times, and now I think we can call her an acclaimed author. So she'll be here Wednesday. Lisa Fernandez is going to lead Q&A. So Elizabeth is going to do a reading. You can ask questions. Please get her book. It's really good. It's called Mona at Sea. I highly recommend it. And then another announcement is on the 17th, Susan, I believe Susan, you're leading the Tisha B'Av service, and that will be here in the sanctuary at 8:30 p.m. Any announcements I forgot?
We should welcome some guests.
Karen, I mean, you've got to do this part.
We have some second-time maybe people who are here, and we have someone who grew up here who's visiting from Israel. So would you please say hello? That's you.
I'm Margaret, second son, and I grew up in the congregation, and I visited my wife on Tuesdays.
Welcome. We're so happy you're here. Shabbat Shalom. And I think that's it. Did I forget anyone that wants to say hi? Oh, yes, I did. Sid's mom. person? Yes?
In about 2 years.
In 2 years. So welcome back. And welcome back, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
And thank you, Sid, for the, not just the amazing, whatever that's called, camera. See why we need him. But if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have mics either. So thank you for saving the day. I'm going to invite Susan Simon up now, please, to lead us in Adon Olam. Page 269.
If you blink, this will be over. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitziri v'rak li'eina sabach efso kol azay melech shemoni gra v'yacharei kiflot hakol levado yimloch nora v'hu haya v'hu v'hu yiyeh v'tifara v'hu echad v'yin sheni lecham shelo lehachbira v'li reshi v'li tadli v'lo ha'oze ha'mizra v'hu eli v'chag oli v'tzorchem li v'yitzara v'hu nisi umanos li v'nakosi v'yom mekra v'yado af kibruchi v'yedi sham Ira ve'imruchi giviyati Dono li below ira Dono lam asher malach V'terem kol yitzir nivra Li'et nasa v'chefso kol Azay melech shemoni gra Shabbat Shalom.
And before we say our final Shabbat Shalom, Jacqueline Pelchik forgot to thank one person, which was her, for leading such a beautiful davening this morning. Shabbat Shalom.
And that's a wrap.